Hello again. Sorry
Hello
about
again.
that. Sorry
No,
about
no,
that.
that's all right. I mean, obviously it was your meeting room number, but what I meant to say is same passcode. Okay, so here we are again.
Here
Okay,
we are
great.
again. Yeah, I wanted to comment on what you had said, about like Stephen there. And yeah, I found that a lot of people are immature in their version of spirituality. And I kind of relate that to when I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. And I went to Sunday school, and they told me what to do and what not to do. And most of the things they told me not to do were the fun things. You start getting to be a teenager, and don't go having sex with everyone, and don't go and take a lot of drugs and drink, and these seem like the things that were a good time. And I came to the conclusion, I'm like, so you mean to tell me I can pretty much do whatever I want to do in life, and at the end I say I'm really sorry, I get to go to the good place, and then the preacher's like, yeah, well, more or less. But what might have been better to say was, yeah, but if you behave that way, you will be really sorry. You can go try it, you have free will, you can do anything you want to do, but if you go live that lifestyle for long enough, and you have a conscience, you're either going to harden yourself too much, or you are going to be very sorry for your behavior. And throughout my life, I did what I wanted to do, and I got high when I wanted to get high, and I slept with who I wanted to sleep with, and those things became very, very empty through trial and error. And I see that, sometimes with people's recovery as well, is like, well, I'm praying. It's like, yeah, but I mean, that might be enough to hold back the demons for a little while, but there's some other actions that you need to do. And I'm seeing now that a lot of institutions are using a book, modeling some of their programs after a book called Buddha's Brain. And I think psychology likes to use Buddha because you can use that as much as a philosophy without a deity, and so on and so forth. But it's incorporating, the aspect of looking at what I've done wrong. It's incorporating the aspect of practicing some virtuous behavior. If I've been lying all the time, maybe I should try to be honest. Someone gives me an extra $10 back at the cash register, I should probably give it back to them, because I'm going to be thinking about it for the next day or so, and and either rationalizing it and justifying why I should have that $10 and life owes me that, or saying, no, I don't want to practice this anymore. And that's why I like I like the look at the 12 steps, the way that they were originally intended to be used early in the beginning in 1935 or 39, when they wrote it out. They were looking at a change, a psychic change in behavior and in perspective, rather than just, okay, I got 2 years sober, I got 5 years sober, listen to me. And nowadays, I'm seeing a lot nowadays where people are just going in and smoking cigarettes and having a cup of coffee, and connection is wonderful, fellowship is wonderful. But when they don't take that extra piece and say, all right, I'm going to meditate on a daily basis, I'm going to look at some of my past transgressions and amend for that behavior, I'm going to look at where I was wrong and apologize for it, I'm going to try not to do that behavior today and further on. So yeah, there's a big piece in that I think is missing from modern recovery programs and so on and so forth. But I'm definitely jazzed to hear about the Munro piece. Did you know Robert Munro? Did you meet him at all?
Well, no, he would have passed long before
Okay.
I got to go to that. I found out about it through Matrix Energetics, actually, which I didn't actually go to Richard's seminar until, oh, let me try to think. I think it was 2012 or 2013. So I heard about it and I had wanted to go for a couple of years. Now, if you go to their programs and you want to study with them, one of the first things you have to do is the gateway experience.
Mhm.
That's sort of like the intro course. And then from there, you're ready to do other things. I would say that, I mean, I agree with you about the 12-step thing. I think what it comes down to is there are different models in terms of recovery. It's not only the 12-step program. I mean, I personally am a big believer in the recovery model of taking responsibility. One criticism of the 12-step program, and again, I'm not knocking it for people for whom it works, because for
Mhm.
some people it does work, but for some people it really doesn't. Now, the one criticism of it is that it doesn't really get you to take responsibility, like saying, well, I have to say that, well, I'm not responsible for this. I'm giving, things up to a higher power because I'm powerless. Well, I guess as a powerful woman, I tend to think that, or, as somebody who ditched victimhood, let's put it that way,
Mhm.
because, I too, like everybody else, had been a professional victim at one point. And then you are a victim. I guess all of us, nobody is impervious to that,
Mhm.
Paul?
Yeah.
Anybody can say, oh yeah, I'm a victim, and people are like, well, how, if you think, well, and when I tell people, well, you've got to get, when you get out of your victim mode, you can do it. The other truth about it is that sometimes we need to be victims. You know what I mean? We need to have our pity party, feel sorry for ourselves. If you look on Facebook somewhere, there is a little ode that I wrote to I think, to my son, just in general, about how to deal with things like kind of life lessons. Well, one of them is, when something happens to you, go ahead, have your pity party, cry, do whatever. But then once you're done, wipe your face and get up off the floor. You don't belong down there.
Mhm.
And then at the very end, I think one of the things I said, and most of all, straighten your crown and remember whose kids you are. Okay, so that was just sort of like, a loving way to say things. But I think that, there's value in having that pity party for yourself, in feeling like a victim, because if you never feel it, you never know what it is to get out of there. And that's ultimately what you need to do for yourself, is learn how to get out of it.
Mhm.
Okay. But if you don't know what it is, you can't, you can't possibly do it. But what I would say is that, when people say, but how do I get out of it? How can I stop being a victim? How do I get power? Well, it's very simple, because one of the other things that I've done more recently, and we'll probably get more into it in the future, because again, I find it, interesting, is divorce coaching, like figuring out, how to get people to reclaim their power. Because when you get divorced, especially for a lot of women, it's a very powerless feeling a lot of times, particularly if you're a woman who bought into the whole, well, I'm going to get taken care of. But when I just say to them, you know what? I said it to one woman who said, how can I get power? I mean, my son of a bitch husband, or soon to be ex-husband, has, I don't have friends outside of him. I don't have this, I don't have that. And I have to say to them, well, the first step is, what about you? What do you like to do? I don't know. Well, if you don't know, that's okay. But start to figure it out. Start to think of things when you were younger that brought you joy. By their own admission, I said, oh yeah, and cut calling him a son of a bitch, because you're only giving him more power by doing that. So how do you get power? And what I tell them, what I told this one woman is, I said, well, Lynette, bottom line, you get power by deciding to have power. You are not powerless. He's paying, for your attorney. The judge ordered that. Accept that. And for God's sakes, listen to your attorney, because the bottom line is, you need that. Oh, but the attorney, blah, blah, blah. Stop. You have to take charge of this and the responsibility. The attorney knows what the hell he or she is doing. Listen to that person. Take what it is. Take back your power. yes, you might have thought you were powerless in the marriage, but guess what? You're not going to be in the marriage anymore. So now you can take your power, you can take your share of whatever you get. You have the chance to reinvent and recreate yourself. The truth is, we are never powerless, Paul. It's just that people want to say, well, I'm broken. Okay, well, you lost this, but look at what you have. This. My bottle, Paul, is this half full or is it half empty, or more like really a quarter full? Well, I can say, well, I hardly have a half left. Or I can say, no, but I still have this. Very important to have it. Now, what Robert Munro realized is that we're not going nowhere when we leave here. Or John Lennon also, had an interesting thing. And, he was a bit of a loudmouth at times and such, but I think he had it right when he said certain things. The truth is, he was way ahead of his time. That's why people thought he was really out there. But the truth is, he had it right with a lot of things that he said. And one of the things he said is, well, I know we don't really die. It's kind of like getting out of one car and going into another one. I would say that's pretty spot on. Or what Robert Munro talks about is, and one of the most interesting things, and the funny thing is, when I took this class, see, there was this one class at Munro that I really wanted to take, but you had to take either lifelines or guidelines to get into that. Guidelines was like spiritual guidance. Lifelines was helping soul retrieval, like people who remain earthbound before they go up. And at first I thought, oh God, I don't want to do that. I don't want to help people retrieve souls. That's not my thing. But what was interesting is I took it because I really wanted X27 that badly. So I decided I would go to Munro, I would take lifelines. And here was the interesting thing. A week before I went to take it, there was, and I was going to take it up in Canada. And there was a guy, there was about a week before, I went to the course up in Vancouver because Paul Elder teaches, has his own retreat center, and he's a Munro trainer and he teaches up there. Beautiful location. Because I'm in California, it's actually a little easier to get to Vancouver than it is to get to Virginia for me. It's only a 3-hour trip, even though it's in another country. Anyway, so about a week before, somebody came to me and told me his name. I forget, it was John Williams or Michael Williams or something, and said, can you help me? I didn't know anything at the time. And I just thought, well, sure. I ended up Googling this person, came to find out he had died a few months before. And I told that to Paul when he got there. He said, well, did you Google it? I said, yes, I did. And this is what I found out. Another time when I went to a Munro thing, and it wasn't necessarily lifelines, another young man came to me and said, well, can you help me? Anytime somebody would come to me and say it, I would always say, well, sure, I can help you. And what they want help with is going from being earthbound up to the ascension. I prefer to say, and with you, I can say it, everybody, a lot of other people might think I'm nuts, that the death, a lot of people who don't understand it as a portal, I can tell you though, that I don't regard death as death. It's an ascension. It's the ascension. So these people need help with their ascension. And Robert Munro in Far Journeys describes the area called the park, where it's kind of a park-like setting. And within the park-like setting, there are various rejuvenation centers. Now, we ourselves can make use of those. We don't have to be dead yet, so to speak, to do all that. But it's there that you do that, and then you go on to ascend other places. Another movie that I really like, despite the fact a lot of people at Munro don't like it because of the message of eternal damnation. It's a beautiful movie, though. It was with Robin Williams, who ironically took his own life, but it's called What Dreams May Come. Have you seen that one?
That's the one where he goes after his wife who committed suicide.
Yes.
And, I was thinking that before when you started saying movie, I was thinking of that. That movie seems to come up in a lot of conversations that I have with a lot of people. And I was of course I don't get too hung up when stars die usually. It's a lot of people are rending their garments and so on. But when Robin Williams took his own life, that was troubling. His some of my favorite I didn't like his stand-up comedy very much, but he had an energy that I could not smile with him. So something was coming off the charisma, something came off of him that I could not smile along with Robin Williams. So yeah, I did see that movie quite a while ago. But yeah, it was moving. It was very moving.
Well, I came to find out much later as now it's come out. At first I thought, well, gee, that's too bad. I wonder what the pain was like. And people said, oh, he had financial problems. Oh, this, that. Well, it shows how people really should just keep their mouths shut. I never actually saw him in stand-up comedy, but I enjoyed some of his performances, even if he was a little manic at times with things.
Yeah.
But I think that people really should just learn to keep quiet, because the fact is you don't know what happened. And it turns out it was not financial, and it really wasn't depression. He apparently had an ailment that was causing him to have, either brain problems or seizures, whatever it was, he was losing sense of himself.
Yeah.
And rather than go through that, he just wanted, to quit it. Now, was there a better way? Maybe he thought if he told his wife, if he told his kids, and wanted to do assisted suicide, but maybe he was too proud. I don't know. But see, the reason I bring up that movie is not because I mean, with the whole eternal damnation thing, well, I don't actually believe in that. I believe that if somebody commits suicide, they don't get punished for it because they did it out of pain. So I don't believe in any of that judgmental thing. But on the other hand, what's intriguing to me about What Dreams May Come is how, like when he met up with his daughter and she was dressed like the stewardess, because at one point he told her how beautiful he thought Asian women were. And so she was an Asian woman, and she said, well, everybody has their own scapes. This is mine. And it looked like something out of a video game. See, I really think that when we do ascend, we probably do something like that. We probably create our own, and then it's a question with reincarnation. Do we want to come back? Do we not? At the end, it's a lot of fun when Robin Williams says to his wife, well, she says, I really wanted to grow old with you. We wanted to become old farts together. And he said, well, we can still do that if you want to do that, or we can reincarnate, and do that as well. And it turns out they reincarnate and meet each other as little kids again. And so I thought that was very interesting. But to me, that really approximates what it is that we choose that scape for ourselves. And we choose whether we want to, rebalance. But there are people who are, who have been stuck here. And so I realized that doing that kind of service of helping people get where they want to go is just an extension of doing things on, on this life. But even my husband, who's not a very, spiritual type at all and doesn't really go in for much of this stuff, well, even he said to me early on in our relationship, do you believe in other worlds, or that there might be, alien life or other life in the universe? And I said, well, I do. And I thought, well, do you? And I was expecting him to say, oh, no, because he was pretty conservative. He said, well, I think it would be awfully, naive of us, and also, very arrogant to think that we're the only ones here.
Yeah, that, I've seen, you were talking about the field earlier. I'm scattered a little bit, and how we get things from the field. And I can say, I can say that everything that's come to me in my recovery were things I asked for. When I started to the journey, I was done. I was at rock bottom. I had been put in prison for a short time. I had lived outdoors for a little while. I earnestly tried to kill myself, and and so when I did go into 12 steps, which I had been doing for a while, and just one point on that is that if you actually do the 12 steps, you do have to make amends, and whether people will actually take that and take the responsibility, because I don't like the powerless quotient that is oh, I'm just powerless. No, I'm powerful in Walmart. I can decide what kind of chips I want. I can decide what to put in my body. I can go to the liquor store and decide to put more liquor in my system. So the source, God, whatever you want to call it, does give people a lot of power to decide and to choose, and so on and so forth. And that's where I think they have gotten very lax in looking at, because the layperson looking at it will just see, oh, group therapy, you go and piss and moan about your problems for an hour and yada yada yada. But the actual program, I think, takes a look at the self from almost a Jungian perspective. And why do things tick you off? Well, John is telling my wife to put the house in her name, tell my boss I'm a drunk. That ticks me off. That makes me upset. Why? Well, I'm going to lose my ability to put a roof over my head. I'm going to lose my love mate. My ambitions might be thwarted or crushed. So those are basic instinctual drives and needs of the physical person that you're going to need. Now, what's my part in it? Well, I'm getting drunk all the time and acting irresponsibly and not giving my wife attention she needs. I'm worried that my boss is going to smell my breath because I'm drunk. I wouldn't worry about these things if they weren't happening. And starting to shift that perspective. But how far people actually take when they get to the process of looking at those shortcomings that they've gone through in their life, I think, is a big part of what's missing from today's use of the 12 steps. Is because, okay, I say a little prayer, I'm flawed, please take it away. Well, that's not it. That's a program of action. So if I'm about to lie to someone or, get really, embellishful, I don't think that's a word, I'm going to tell a tall tale or something. So the little thinker should go, hey, aren't we not doing that anymore? Aren't we trying to be living a more truthful life? Okay, I practice that. When it comes to the amends process, I think that's a process that never ever stops, because my amends to my children, to my wife, to my family, those I've hurt the most, had to continue because there were things I did that I didn't know I didn't know. I was just ignorant of my ignorance. And so as these things would abreact, they bubble to the surface. It's like, wow, I put a lot of adult problems on my teenage children. They had no agency to deal with that. I never thought it was bad because it was done to me. And and so I just thought, oh, okay, that's all right. But as it came to the surface, it was like, oh, well, I'm going to need to apologize to them for doing that as well. And that's what the book covers. The book covers what is starting to lack, because when those guys wrote that, and they were taking it from a group called the Oxford Group, a Christian movement, and and nobody had any sobriety time. Bill W. had 6 months or whatever. Dr. Bob was taken through the steps, half of them while he was still drunk. And, so they had to really look at a person's psychic change, how they were acting, how they were treating their fellow men, how they were thinking. So I digress there for a minute, because that was the original intention, and it kind of drifted off to just, you know, a movement of, you know, people hanging out and pontificating, so to speak. And, you know, and I've seen how well that works. The field, though, I mean, everything I've gotten in my recovery has come from just like, okay, I'm going to try this prayer thing. You know, I need some clarity here because my brain is like Christmas lights that have been thrown in a box and I can't even sort it out. And you know, and something would happen. A synchronicity would come. A synchronicity would come. A video would come up on my YouTube that I didn't search for, and I was too lazy to reach for the remote, so I I got embroiled and watched the video, and it ended up being something that I needed at that time, you know. But back to you know, these people now, did the people come to you in a meditation? How did that happen, that these people, the souls that needed to that needed this help?
No, that's the weird thing. It didn't come in a meditation at all. I was just doing whatever I was doing, and all of a sudden things popped in. And it's also been kind of a pretty typical thing with me. Sometimes when you want answers and you're asking for it and you're asking for it, it just doesn't seem to come. But then you let go of it and you're doing something else. Maybe, you know, like for example, I have, oh, let's see here. I've got, you know, these figs that a friend of mine gave me. It's a friend who's actually going through, you know, cancer right now. And so, you know, I was making her, excuse me, some of the, you know, I made her some food. Her husband gave me figs from their tree. And I said, oh, this is great. You know, and he was giving it to me initially as a gift. And then I said, well, you know what, Michael, this is an awful lot. It's more than we can possibly eat. So how about this? How about I make some fig jam for you? And he's like, and Bridget, you know, who has brain cancer, who it's hard for her to smile, but she just heard, oh, I'd like that. So I'm going to do that. But later I'll be washing the figs, and maybe something, a solution to a problem or something might just come to me that I have no idea from whence, you know? And when these people came to ask for help, it might have been when I was lying in bed, kind of trying to get myself up, or it wasn't really through meditation though, which was the interesting thing. I might have been driving my car and they just came to me and said, could you help me? So you don't really have to look, you know, for things when it happens. Or I like one of the modalities, you know, Brian talks about on his channel, the reality revolution, although he talks about many things. Reality transurfing, I really like the expression of, I don't wish, hope, or pray, I intend. So if you intend for something to happen, well, you know, maybe you intend it, but you intend it and then you leave it alone. Because the more you try to push, the more you're going to push it away. But if you just let it come to you, or you just take it and then leave it alone, all of a sudden a solution comes. And I can't, you know, tell you what it is, but it also happened to me when I was in school, or if I was writing a paper or something. Sometimes what I just had to do was walk away from something, completely walk away. And then all of a sudden it came. Probably some of the best advice I ever got when I was a young woman trying to decide, as a matter of fact, whether I should leave graduate school to take this job, because it would require leaving grad school to take it and then me going back later if I chose to. Well, I didn't know what to do. And I talked to a gentleman who was like a mentor to me. And he said, well, where do you have to go for the interview? Well, to Chicago. He said, can you take a train there? And I said, yeah, I suppose I can. And he said, okay, get yourself a sleeper car. When you're on the train, take off that Walkman. That's what we had at the time, little Walkman with all the music. He said, don't bring your Walkman, or bring it, but don't listen to it. Just stay in your car, no books or anything. Just bring a tablet of paper and a pencil, you know, to write down whatever, you know, whatever you're going to write down. And he said, just sit there. Don't talk to anybody. The porter who brings your meals, just say thank you. So I did this, and I just asked the I asked the people, they were going to pay for a flight. I said, well, could I get that money applied to that, whatever the flight would have been? And they said, yes. So I did that. And he said, well, I believe at the end of this, when you just sit with yourself, and because I think you alluded to the fact that most people would rather do almost anything than deal with themselves. But what I was being forced to do was deal with myself here. And so I wrote down a lot of different things, advantages, disadvantages. And Bob was right. By the time, I had arrived, in Chicago, I knew whether I would or would not take the job.
It's funny because a couple of big names in psychology have come across this thing. Jung called it transcendent function or active imagination, where he would go into like a little bit of a hypnagogic state, that state we're in between waking and sleeping, and so forth.
State akin to sleep or whatever it is.
Yeah. And and a lot of others have talked about this. Maslow called it peak experiences. And where when Jung talked about it, I read his Red Book, which is really far out, where he's in these experiences. He's talking to the devil. He's talking to, different biblical figures and so on and so forth. But, a lot of times, they'd see the great and learned Dr. Jung on the shores of Lake Zurich in his skivvies making mud pies, and so on. And, and things would bubble up. And I've done this, I've practiced getting into a hypnagogic state. Whereas like when I wake up, I'll just set a timer for 2 minutes and I'll just sit and raise my eyes about 20 degrees above center. I close my eyes and do a slow count to just start feeling what that feels like. And I can still remember my dreams and so on and so forth. And, and so that when I want to get into that in meditation, I will go there and I'll think about wherever the mind goes, I let it go. I get relaxed and it goes to some funny far out places. And at the end of it, I come out and it might be, 45 minutes, an hour, or, if it's a big problem I'm having, it might be several meditations. But suddenly something that, if I was to tell a good therapist my whole life story and my history and stuff like that, and then tell her the epiphany I had, she'd be like, yeah, duh. That it's pretty obvious that's what you're doing from, what I see of your history. And, but to us, when that abreacts, when that bubbles to the surface, it's like some great, wow, that's what I was doing. And, so these, Bradshaw touched on it a little bit with his inner child work. Jung, Maslow, the transpersonal school has looked at a lot of altered states and stuff like that. And I don't think they went too far into it because you don't have to pay anyone to do it. Whereas talk therapy, I can, after 30 years, I can buy a house by the shore or something. But these solutions that come within, and I think Wayne Dyer touched on it when he's talking about the Tao and looking at the Tao Te Ching and so forth. So this stuff is fascinating to me, and I have a very open mind toward it because once I started seeing it, and if we look at Freud, he would tell us, well, we see patterns in everything. Just ignore that. Ignore the man behind the curtain. But the best Freud was offering, it seemed to me, was being well adjusted to living a shit existence. And, and that just wasn't enough. I was like, well, no, I want to be happy. I want to be comfortable in my skin. And the people I saw doing certain things they were laughing, smiling, having a good time, solving problems like adults, gainfully employed, not a burden on society, and helping others. So the practice of that is really, incredible. And I look forward to more of Munro's book and practicing more of these things and those CDs, and you want to sell those CDs.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah, no, I definitely, will. I'm just gonna make sure, I know that I have them, so they were boxed up, so I'll go ahead, I'll grab them, and then I'll figure out, what I, want to do with them, because see, it is good to have them, but see, once I went and actually took the course, the CDs are gonna be a hell of a lot cheaper than taking the course, which is a
yeah.
couple grand. But the thing is that you can get into it, but it's like, once you've been to the program, because I said to one of the trainers, well, shouldn't I continue to work with the CDs? He said, no, it's all inside you now.
Mm,
And so, that's definitely true. At some point, maybe you want to go and you want to do it. I don't necessarily recommend the Zoom thing, but if you can go down there in person at some point, I probably recommend it at some point. You don't have to do it right away. I didn't do it right away. And I felt that the CDs and just the Hemi sync and all,
hmm
really helped initially, and then moving on from there. But again, it was the whole idea of intention. And it's kind of interesting because I almost feel like almost everything I study, it's like intention, intention. It reminds
hmm
me of Bill Clinton when he kept saying, it's the economy, stupid, So it's like, it's intention, stupid, it's like, how many times do you have to have it told you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been, I mean, if you, I don't know if you've read the Four Agreements, being impeccable with your word, and those other ones, are all good things. And as
Yeah.
I started doing as I said I was going to do, a trust for myself developed inside. Whereas, like, I know I will do that because I said I would. So unless some outside force acts upon me, I'm not such a subject of inertia that I'm not going to do it, and as
Mhm.
that started coming, it became a knowing. I know this about myself. I know what I will do. I believe it to my core, and so I the intention of opening a sober living center, that's in there, and I know it's going to happen because I intend to
Mhm.
do it. And as I go along, and I can work diligently on things toward it, I do them. I like the part in Far Journeys. I think it's Far Journeys I'm reading right now. I'm reading
Yeah,
the
yeah.
second one. And he said, make 3 lists, a list of things you can't do anything about, the list of things you can do something about, and the list of your dreams. He said, throw the first one in the garbage because you can't do anything about that. And then the second list should get shorter and shorter and shorter, and because and that's what's happening with me right now. The only thing that was on that list is the hours right now I need to get my licensing so that I can open the center and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you know what, it's just going to happen. It's going to happen. I've seen people try to thwart what I'm doing, and they always fail because something greater than me wants this. And another one thing, Manly Hall, I was reading Manly P. Hall recently. He's talking about white and black magic in the book I was reading. He's like, white magic, do the right thing. That was basically the whole synopsis. If you're trying to live a more pure existence, if you're trying to help your fellow man, if you're trying to practice virtue, if you are trying to lower your shortcomings and stuff like that, then forces all around you will be conspiring to help you on that mission. And I think it's like swimming, when we're going against that, it's swimming against the current. I would love to take this even longer. We're gonna have to do another interview, Nikki, but Zoom is telling me my time is running out because I didn't
Yeah.
pay.
No, it
And,
sounds good. And it's also interesting. You mentioned the Four Agreements. The bottom line is that when you talk about like the Four Agreements, one of my favorite books is actually Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance,
there you
which
go.
actually just says the same type of things. It's really the idea of gumption, also the idea of quality, which means that you're actually paying attention and making conscious choices on how to do things. And so I really think that, there's a lot to be said with that. And so definitely, we can talk again, at some point, but I think it's great. It's great, great to be here today. And thank you so much.
Thank you so
for the
much,
opportunity.
Nikki. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And I'm going to
Awesome.
end it now because it's saying less than a minute. And I look forward to hearing whatever you're doing because it's very fascinating to me. So thank you so much. You have a great
All right.
day. Enjoy the sunshine out in California.
I definitely will. You
Okay.
as well.
All
All right.
right.
Have a great.
Bye-bye.